And look at this face-off, Henry. What are your thoughts here?
You're hearing that shit from me. That's cringe. In some weird way, I kind of like
cringe about it.
He's trying to big man the smaller guy, who the smaller guy to me is dangerous. I think Tank Davis is going to put the hands on him, but I like it, bro. I will say something about Jake Paul. He's brought a lot of attention to boxing. Tank Davis guaranteed $40 million.
Jake Paul, Tank Davis fight got moved to Miami.
I think Jake wins.
Jake's just so big, dude.
I think Jake wins.
This is different because it's similar. It's similar to Logan versus Mayweather, but Jake Paul boxing now obviously is way more advanced than where Logan was at that moment in time.
If the weight controversy hadn't already set tempers blazing, Jake Paul made sure to pour fuel on the fire during the face-off, and that's what fired up the whole boxing community. Former fighter Henry Cejudo labeled the face-off as cringe, but also said it was strangely entertaining. Cejudo pointed out how Jake Paul was trying to be a big man, while Tank Davis, the visibly smaller fighter, was still dangerous, even predicting that Tank could put his hands on him. He did acknowledge the tremendous value Jake Paul has brought to boxing, which was highlighted in Tank's $40 million guaranteed purse, before noting that anyone would jump at that opportunity to be Tank in this scenario. Although Cejudo and Usman weren't too fond of the face-off, nevertheless came off as chaotic, controversial, and I suppose we couldn't avoid talking about the implications for boxing.
You were in that position, would you fight Jake Paul?
Oh, hell yeah. You gotta give Jake Paul his flowers. Mike Tyson, Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz.
Jake Paul is a disruptor, and he's done a phenomenal job at that. You get big and famous enough to where they would just hand you the title shot and completely throw out the ranking system.
If Jake Paul was to do that, I think that'd be the greatest sports accomplishment in history. Going from a Disney Channel kid to a YouTuber to becoming a world champion.
UFC former fight and sports analyst Chael Sonnen heavily criticized Tank, stating he does not know how to sell a fight, not even inside his division. He compared that to the Paul brothers entering boxing, admitting they didn't have skill or experience, but intended to fight while giving them extra pounds for balance. Sonnen contended that Hank's focus on size instead of skill hurts the sport. Boxing should always be about skill and experience, not advantages based on size. He made a mockery that it didn't matter how skill was gained based on a size difference, illustrating that real champions truly dominate, whether that be in a bar fight or in the ring.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you.
The face-off detonated into chaos the instant Jake Paul turned trash talk into theater. The arena roared as he bent low for Gervonta Tank Davis, a mocking crouch meant to show every inch of their size difference. The weight gap, which was already a topic of discussion, was made impossible to ignore by Jake's stunt, a deliberate insult directed toward Tank's pride. For a fighter built upon grit and grit alone, it was no longer gamesmanship. This was a public affront toward his overall identity. You could feel the tension in the air, every smirk and locked stare like a spark on dry tinder. Both fighters and the crowd could sense a fight was likely to break out before the bell ever rang. Despite all the publicity and media hype surrounding this fight, veteran boxing trainer Robert Garcia did not hold back, calling the matchup a disrespect to real boxing. He felt Tank took a big misstep by accepting this fight, all to heighten the spectacle of an exhibition fight that had little respect to the history of boxing. Garcia claimed the whole spectacle was not just dangerous, it was irresponsible, a money grab disguised as a fight. What started as a normal hype-up promotion has turned into something dark and something dangerous. With egos ignited and tempers prepared to boil over, Jake's cheap shot did not simply light the fuse. It turned the entire buildup into a ticking time bomb that now everyone in the fight game is anticipating.
So we're talking about it's actually embarrassing just to
to see what Tank chose to do instead of doing what a real fighter should have done. You know, everybody seen what happened. Everybody seen that Roach deserved to be champion. He should have given him that rematch. That fight is the one that should be happening. There's no way, you know. For me, it's embarrassing just to see that. But I go back to the same thing. It's business. He's making a lot of money. I have a lot of fighters. I have people involved in boxing that I'm one phone call away. But personally, I'm not okay with that fight. I think Tank should be fighting Roach and giving us that fight, because that's what we all want to see.
Garcia's comments carried a significant weight, striking directly at the core of the fight's authenticity. In his mind, there was no prestige in actions taken by Tank, just a champion who was sidestepping a fight that the fans deserved. Garcia again mentioned Roach, bringing back into the discourse about who deserved the fight. He insisted that this wasn't solely about money, it was about respect for the sport. Any fight that has been presented to fans felt more like business than boxing. He was conveying that it was right to the fans. The rawness of his comments seemed to persuade fans that this was just a payday hiding under the guise of a super fight. Michael Bisping wasted no time, suggesting Jake Paul aims for theatrics that look good on a poster, but appear very scripted when the gloves have been touched. To Bisping, the bout is just another piece of manufactured theatrics surrounding the Paul fight. It is about generating pay-per-view revenue, at the very least, rather than truly measuring skill growth. Bisping argues that Jake continues to offer fights against opponents with headlines and controversy rather than legitimate risk in the ring, leaving the matchups feeling more like marketing than meaningful competition.
Hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia.
The assault launched by Michael Bisping cut no corners. It went right to the heart of Paul's meticulously constructed facade. He did not just dismiss the match, he declared it a deeply thought out scheme, a fight for the headlines and pay-per-view rather than a legitimate challenge. For Bisping, the match was not the audacious challenge Jake labels it as. It was a controlled event that offered very little danger. What the audience may have thought was going to be a battle in the ring started to feel like scripted entertainment, and Bisping made it clear to everyone that there was no illusion.
All he's taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92 pound weight difference. Almost a 100 pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65 pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully.
Bisping added to the commentary by stating that respect cannot be earned by picking on smaller men. If Jake Paul wants to prove he is more than a social media personality, then he needs to face off with someone who can actually put him in danger, and someone who truly makes him relevant in danger. And until then, Bisping contends, each time there is a big match, it would not look like a legacy quest. Instead, it would look like a choreographed performance.
What don't you understand about this? If you want respect from your peers, if you want everyone on the planet to look at you and take you seriously and give you credit as a boxer, you have to take on challenges that are real. You have to go up against someone that keeps you up at night, against someone that gets you out of bed in the morning to go for a run because the fear of them beating you down is real. Not going up against someone that is so small. If you were to go up to this guy in a bar and try and start a fight with them, people would look at you and say one word: whoa, 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 stop being such a bully. Leave him alone. You are way bigger than this guy. And that's clearly what we have here. It is ridiculous.
Michael Bisping continued swinging away at Jake Paul, asking him to confront real danger instead of hiding behind a built-in weight advantage. According to Bisping, a real test is the kind of opponent that keeps you up at night, not the kind of opponent the fans see as a joke. Bisping compared the image to a bar fight where the bigger guy is supposed to back off while the smaller guy does his thing, a violent image that characterized Jake as a predator chasing the easiest prey. What was supposed to be fun suddenly felt cheap and cruel, and Bisping's plain-spoken, heartfelt remarks felt like a clean knockdown.
Look at the tail of the tape. Gervonta Tank Davis, granted, a very, very skilled boxer, a world champion. He's had some great wins. He's had a tremendous career. He's got 28 knockouts on his record. I'm just looking at the tail of the tape here. 30 years old, Jake Paul, 28. Gervonta Davis is 5'5" tall, whereas Jake Paul is 6'1". I would never dream on picking on a guy that is 5'5" tall. Granted, there's some tough guys out there that are 5'5", okay? They're smaller guys, you know, but for 5'5", they'll pack a good punch. Typically, they're mixed martial artists or boxers, yeah. But when you're a boxer that's 6'1", that's only had one loss on the record, of course, Tommy Fury, doesn't want to face him again. Picking on a guy that small would be laughable. It would be embarrassing.
He picked apart the tail of the tape with cold rationality. Gervonta Tank Davis at 5 feet 5 inches, Jake at 6 feet 1 inch, and carrying far more weight and only one loss. The discrepancy on paper was laughable, he said. For him, it wasn't just unfair, it was humiliating to the sport. A champion like Tank deserves better than to be presented as the small guy in somebody else's money show, and the image of Jake bending down to further taunt him only grew the mismatch. At one point, fellow fighter Teofimo Lopez said it seemed like the fight was more about spectacle than about legacy. Lopez said the fight wasn't about records or greatness at all. It was about the show, the buzz, and the payday.
Bit of the fight.
Take two.
Last one. Jake Paul, Tank. What do you think of that fight? Are you happy for Tank?
No, great fight, great matchup. It's fun for the sport of boxing. It makes it fun, it makes it entertaining. That's what it's all about, you know, and may the best man win. It's an exhibition regardless, it doesn't count.
Lopez had a different approach than the critics did. Rather than ripping it apart, he embraced the exciting side of the event. Lopez recognized that this event and matchup do not have a ripple effect with respect to the rankings or my historical rankings, but he insisted it would attract eyeballs. Lopez continued to suggest boxing needs events like this to generate interest in the sport. The focus was not on being purist or traditional. It was about drawing eyeballs and creating conversations. He reminded the fans that this was a spectacle and that sometimes the spectacle itself is the story. And in this case, Lopez was just here for the spectacle. Romero then joined the conversation, clearly shocked and trying to gain clarity on the battle. He had to respect Gervonta Tank Davis's skill and accuracy, but then again, when you compare the vast physical size and advantage of reach Jake Paul brings to the ring, Romero had a problem. It was hard to square off the fact that talent is pitted against physicality, showing just how convoluted and unpredictable this fight has become.
I don't even know what to think right now. I don't even know what to think. Maybe Tank has an unreal boxing ability and Jake Paul is really big. But the last time I said somebody was going to be bigger, they weren't that much bigger. But I think in this case, somebody's actually a lot bigger, so.
Raleigh's comment highlighted how weird this fight must feel for the pros living it. He recognized Tank's superior boxing IQ, the type of boxing IQ that separates him from the rest. But standing in front of him was Jake Paul, with a body much larger than anything Tank had faced. The contrast left Raleigh sitting right in the middle, respecting Tank's capabilities, yet thinking of the disparity between the two fighters' sizes. He simply echoed the uncertainty that fans were thinking about. It was not so much a prediction of a fight outcome, but documenting the insanity of this fight taking place. Former world champion Paulie Malignaggi didn't just criticize the matchup, he ripped it apart with a scorching take that turned heads across the boxing world. He responded by calling the event a circus, likening it to the old Roman arenas where bread and circuses kept the public occupied. This, to Paulie, was not a fight at all, but a distraction that got attention while cloaking the truth by showing off. His comments didn't just hit the promotion hard, they began to address the very reason why this matchup existed, cutting through the hype like a knife. And And the controversy didn't stop there. The Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission stepped in, dropping a bombshell that rattled the sport. They refused to sanction the bout, flat out accusing the promoters of selling something that should never have been on the card. I believe it's in the public's interest to know that because they've been promoting something they should not have been, exposing the cracks in the entire spectacle. What was supposed to be a blockbuster night suddenly looked like a smoke and mirrors hustle, but even with Georgia slamming the brakes, the circus rolled on. The fight quickly found a new stage in Miami, keeping the chaos alive. They probably evaluated a situation, knew that their weight differences were too much, highlighting a danger that no amount of hype could hide. That single revelation hit harder than any punch. This wasn't about skill anymore. It was about safety, fairness, and basic common sense. In a sport already soaked in risk, Georgia saw the mismatch as a gamble too far. Now, fans are left with a chilling question. Has Miami chosen spectacle over safety? The bright lights are still on, but the shadow of doubt looms larger than ever. This showdown has grown into more than a simple fight. It's a full-blown storm of hype, curiosity, and disagreement. Some enjoy the spectacle, others think it is a circus, but there is no denying the buzz. Concerns of size, respect, and legitimacy are real, with each stare down or rash comment only serving as another log in the fire. Audiences are split. Half want the circus, half are uncertain about the sport's legitimacy. The stage now feels bigger than the fighters themselves, a spectacle that could define the entire year. When the opening bell rings, we'll find out whether this was brilliant matchmaking or a disaster waiting to unfold. So what's your take? Can Tank's speed and skill erase the size gap, or will Jake's power rewrite the script? And the bigger picture, does a matchup like this lift boxing to new audiences or pull it further into spectacle? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and stay tuned. The drama is just getting started.